So, we have finally had the finale of RWBY Volume 4. Has it lived up to all the hype? Hey everybody out there in YouTube land, Jake of the OneManBand is back again, and welcome to the final episodic review for RWBY Volume 4. We're looking at the finale, Episode 12, No Safe Haven. And with the lead up to the finale, I was really hoping that the finale would be the linchpin that would make Volume 4 great, or would at least make it good. Now, in my personal opinion, I don't think it did the best that it could do. But I want to talk about the episode in itself, just by itself. I'm going to be reviewing this episode as itself, as an episode. So, as we start off the finale, we start off with the battle between Team Ranger and the bestial grim horseman thing. I know that people have a name for it, and it's based off some Norse mythology thing, but I don't know what that name is, and I don't know how to pronounce it, so I'm just going to be calling it the Horseman. Now, judging by how we jump back into the finale, it seems that the battle has been going on for at least a little bit. Team Ranger has been knocked back, and the horse is starting to come into the courtyard where RWBY, Jean, and Crow were sitting. Now, once again, we get a good look at this creature and how Team Ranger is reacting to it. We see that Ren just has this look of anger and hatred on his face, while everyone else is more has a look of questioning and, okay, how are we gonna take this down? Now, before the battle can actually truly start, Team Ranger needs to get Crow to safety. And I'm actually surprised that it's Jean, of all people, who goes for Crow first. It's not RWBY or anyone else, but it's Jean. And by the way, Jean, didn't like Crow in the previous few episodes, it really shows just how much of a good person Jean is. It doesn't matter if he's angry at this guy. At the end of the day, he wants to keep people safe, especially somebody who can't fight for themselves. And that's Crow, because he's wounded and pretty much can't fight at all. Then again, the Horseman Grimm sees this as an opportunity and begins to charge. And it's here that we get to see Ren use his semblance one more time. He's able to use his semblance of masking people's emotions by shielding Jean and Crow from the Horseman. And it's strange that once they're coated in Ren's semblance, the Horseman completely stops and seems to be blind to the fact and doesn't even know where they are, when we see that this Grimm actually physically has eyes, both on the horse part of him and the man part of him. So, does this mean that all Grimm are somewhat blind and only seeing sort of this negative emotion sight? Even if it can see physically, its attention is soon drawn away by fire from Nora and RWBY, leaving Jean the opportunity to take Crow to a safe area. He takes Crow not that far away, just far enough that they'll be able to know where he is, and hopefully the Horseman won't go after him. When Jean leaves him behind, though, Crow takes hold of Jean's hand right before he goes, almost as if he's going to say something to him. But Crow doesn't. Now, what's really on my mind is, what was Crow going to say? Or was he going to say anything at all? Was he going to say something along the lines of, keep my niece safe, be sure RWBY gets out alive, or did he have some other secret underneath his sleeve that he was going to tell Jean? Maybe about Ozpin? Maybe about the cane? Maybe about something more that's going on? But Jean is soon back into the fray, and we see that Team Ranger is, at first, having a little bit of trouble fighting this Grimm. Now, we see that this Grimm is using its clawed arms to attack Ranger. It's using its hind legs to kick Ranger, especially Jean. And we see Jean is able to take a lot of hits due to the fact that he's the one actually going in and attacking the creature up close and personal. Both RWBY, Ren, and Nora all have ranged weaponry. Jean does not. So he's the one that's going in close and attacking the creature mano-a-mano. We once again see Jean is very much the strategist of the team, telling the team what to do and hopefully diverting the creature's attention so that they can either find a weak spot or calculate a better plan on taking it down. He tells them to circle the creature so that it can't pin any of them down, and it has to constantly be accounting for the 4 of them moving around it, which is honestly a good strategy. But we see that this creature has a few tricks up its sleeves. But Team Ranger has a few tricks up their sleeve as well. They got a master strategist as well as Jean. We saw that he got upgrades to his weaponry at the beginning of this volume, and it's here that we see another upgrade to his weaponry. He's able to sheath his sword into his sheath shield, and it extends and sharpens, becoming a form of heavy broadsword that he wields with 2 hands. Now, I honestly really like this upgrade for Jean. He can be a defensive shield and sword kind of guy, but if he needs to get in for some heavy strikes or to totally slice through some Grim, he can then transform his weapon into this broadsword variant, giving it some extra power. But even with this upgraded sword, it seems that this Grim is a little harder to crack than normal, and Team Ranger has some near misses with some near fatal injuries. Ren is pinned to a wall, and it's only by some quick thinking from Nora and RWBY that they're able to save Ren. So, although we have some Ren and Nora working together and some nice Ren and Nora moments, we have a lot of close calls. Now, it's at this moment that I want to discuss the Grim creature itself. This horseman, if you will. Now, I know everyone is different and everyone has their opinion. And if you are frightened by this creature, that is entirely up to you. If it frightens you, that's fine. But me personally, this creature does not frighten me. When it was being built up, it frightened me. When we saw it in the smoke, it frightened me. But once we actually saw the creature, it just was lackluster. Thinking back, I thought this creature would be much bigger, but as we see it, it looks like the footprints that it leaves behind aren't even the same size as the hooves that it has. It does have creepy elements to it. The horseman in itself is creepy, but the face just doesn't do it for me. It looks more like Jack Skellington than anything truly frightening. The screaming and the twitching that it does is frightening, but when it does it so much, it loses its creep factor with me. I mentioned earlier how this creature seems to be blind in some way, or maybe all the Grim use some form of negative emotion, spectral vision, to search for their prey. But it's due to the fact that it was full-blown charging Jean and Crow, and then to just have it stop as soon as Ren's semblance hit them, it just seemed like this creature was really dumb when it's been around for so long and killed so many. And as we've seen, the horse part of its body is what's durable. It takes multiple hits with grenades, explosives, bullets, and slices from swords, and it doesn't even seem to bat an eye. It's the human part of it, the man part of it, that seems to be the weak part, but it's also the part that's hardest to hit. This creature's only weapons also seem to be its extendable dual-clawed arms. And besides that, it doesn't seem to have much offensive capabilities. It can kick people, but it doesn't seem to have anything else than that. And while its extendable arms are frightening and durable, clawed, and hard to fight against, For the most part, this creature by itself doesn't seem to be that much of a threat as it was kind of led up to be. At least in my opinion. If you guys think differently, that's entirely up to you. I think the major factor in this fight to why it went poorly for a while was mostly Ren's emotional state. He was blinded by anger and revenge and probably a little bit of fear. Ren was taking risky moves and not thinking clearly, which caused him to make a lot of mistakes and for Nora to jump in the way and take some blows for him. And I think that's what mostly leads to them both losing their aura pretty late in the fight. While Jean and RWBY are still doing pretty good against the creature. Neither of them lose their aura, and they're able to do probably most of the damage to it leading up to the actual kill. Now, we do have some nice Ren-Nora moments here. We see that Nora this time is the one to save Ren from his emotions. While in the flashback, it was Ren who saved Nora from hers. Nora would have been the only person in the world who would have been able to slap some sense into Ren. He listens to her. They have been friends forever, and seeing him act this way was tearing Nora apart. She didn't want Ren to throw his life away on this monster. Not after everything they had been through. They had been through so much together that to just throw it all away now would have been a complete waste. And it's this moment that finally brings Ren back to his normal self. Now, my personal gripe with this is that we saw how reckless Ren was in this fight. And I think it would have been a little bit, it would have meant a little bit more if we would have seen some consequences for Ren's actions rather than just him and Nora getting hurt. What if, like, RWBY got hurt instead? Or, like, someone ended up getting seriously injured instead of just having their aura drained? I mean, it just seemed like Ren's jump back to just being okay came a little too soon. But it works for this battle. I'll give it that. They had to kill the creature in this episode, so that's why it works. That it happened this fast. Now, the battle up to this point has been at least fun to watch. We've seen some good blows be dealt to this creature, as well as this creature dealing some awesome blows. But once Ren gets back in the right mindset, this creature's pretty much done for. I mean, they come up with a plan on how to immobilize it, and the plan works rather swimmingly, without any form of trouble. RWBY and Jean are both able to pin the extendable arms. It seems strange that they're able to do this so easily due to the fact that those arms were so durable before. And then Nora is able to pin the horse part of it down, leaving Ren the opportunity to get in close with his father's knife and deal the finishing blows. Now, as durable as this Grim seemed to be, once its, like, man part of its body is actually attacked, it really isn't all that durable. And that takes away from the creepiness of this Grim for me. Once Ren gets in super close to it, he's able to cut off its arms just like that with a regular blade. It just seems like it's just way too... It's just strange that after this whole fight and they've been slicing and shooting at this thing the whole time, just cutting its arm near its actual body with a blade is just that easy. Why couldn't RWBY have just sniped its head from a distance or sniped the arms? Why is a blade more powerful than a bullet in this case? But I think that's a discussion for another day. Ren is able to deal the final blows to this creature, and this battle is done in like 6 minutes? For a final battle of a volume, this battle really seems to be lacking. Although we did get to see a new variation of Grim and a new way of how to fight a Grim, for the most part, this battle was just lackluster. It didn't seem to have any edge. Although we were worrying for Ren, Nora, RWBY, and Jean's well-being, for the most part during this battle, I never got the feeling that, oh no, things are going bad. Not even when Ren and Nora lost their auras. I was just like, well, that's bad, but John and RWBY are still okay. For a battle, it was lackluster, but for the conclusion of Ren's sort of arc in this story, it kind of works. It works in the fact that we've seen this creature, what it's done to him, and how he's carried that with him all this time, and now how he's able to finally face the demons of his past and defeat them. That's what makes this battle cool. Not the battle itself, but what it meant for Ren. With the Grimm finally defeated, RWBY goes off to check on Crow. And while he's still alive, he's still poisoned and still not doing all that good. But airships arrive. Okay, now I'm just gonna go out and say this right now. The airship's arrival at this town at this exact moment is nothing but plot convenience. It's nothing but a shoehorn to get Ranger to Mistral in the next few minutes of the volume. The pilots of the airships claim that they saw smoke rising from the area. And it's like, what smoke? There was some dust from when I think a building collapsed at the beginning of the episode, and then there was the black smoke-like stuff that came off the Grimm. There was that, but why didn't they just say it was, Grimm discharge or anything like that? And if it was smoke, it makes me think, well, maybe in an earlier sketch of the script, part of this village was actually on fire, so there actually was smoke. The pilot also goes on to say that nobody's been out there for years and that they were just doing their patrol, and when they saw the smoke, they decided to investigate. Why would you just investigate some random smoke? How do you know it isn't bandits that are luring you down so that they can take your airships? How do you know it isn't some Grimm that just randomly started a fire by accident? You don't know precisely what it is. To just go investigate some random smoke in a village that has been abandoned for years, it just seems like a very risky move for something that isn't confirmed. But the convenience of the airships is kind of overshadowed by two big things happening. One, we finally make it to Mistral and we get our first sights of it. And I love it. To be honest, I love how Mistral looks. We see this mountain city where the city is actually built onto the mountain and on top of it. And it just looks beautiful, and I cannot wait to see what the actual city itself is going to be like in the next volume. And the other big thing that's pretty much confirmed at this point is the Renora ship. Now, we see Ren is holding Nora's hand. We saw a little bit of Ren-Nora stuff back during the battle, and Nora ends this scene with resting her head on Ren's shoulder. Now, it's touching, and I'm so happy that these two have finally gotten together, and it's dazzling. I love it. This is the ship that we have been waiting for and the ship that all of us have been rooting for. We then transition to the lodgings that Team Ranger is having while in Mistral. And we see that RWBY is sharing her room with her Uncle Crow. And while he's resting, and obviously cured of the poison by now, RWBY starts to write a letter. Now, we know that land communication by letter is a bit shaky due to the Grimm activity, but it's better than nothing due to the fact that all the CCT is down over the entire world. Now, although this letter to Yang is meant to be sort of a, Yang, I made it to Mistral, everything's okay, I'm looking forward to when you can finally meet up with me, it's also the closing statement for this volume. And for that, I like it. It's a good way to send off this volume with a monologue like this. It talks about how the journey has been a long and difficult one. And for every day that Team Ranger was on this journey, they didn't know if what was over the next hill was going to be good or was going to be bad. But they knew that they had to keep moving forward. They knew that bad things happen every single day. But this is why the Huntsmen and Huntresses were created. to make a bad situation good and to help the people of Remnant through bad times. Everyone experiences loss at some point, and loss can consume people. When you get so consumed with loss and despair, it will consume you. You'll never move forward if you're consumed by this loss and this despair and this grief that everyone on this planet experiences. But that's why we change. That's why we move forward. Because we don't want to experience loss every single day and all the time. We want to keep moving forward. We want to see what's at the end of the rainbow. RWBY begins to say that we keep moving forward in memory of the ones we've lost, but instead, she changes it to we keep moving forward for all those that still need our help. For all those that are still with us, that's why we keep moving forward. We keep the memory of those that we've lost, of course, but we don't let that loss consume us. We have to keep thinking about everyone else in the world that still needs us. Now, during this speech, we get to see pretty much everyone else's travels, if you will, toward Mistral. We see Weiss is able to smuggle herself onto a cargo ship that seems to be heading for Mistral. Yang is actually taking a boat and her motorcycle the long way to Mistral, and it seems that the boat seems to be the same exact one that Blake took to Menagerie. So I don't know how that traveling all the way to Menagerie back to Vale worked so fast. You see, this is one of the big issues, I think, with this whole scene, is that there's so much going on that we're not exactly sure if it's all happening at the same time. Where does one timeline start and where does another one end? The timelines in this speech segment are all over the place, and I have no idea how to calculate if something's happening at the same time that RWBY's actually talking, or if it's happened in the past, or if it's happening in the future. I'm not sure, and that angers me. Another part we see with Yang is that she comes to a crossroads where we see a sign is pointing to Mistral while another one is pointing to a destroyed village, and over it it says bandits. Now this is the point that we get to see what Yang's choice truly is. Now she says that she is in so much trouble when I get there. And we see her zoom off. And by the way we see her zoom off, it looks like she's going in the direction of RWBY, which I am 100% for. She needs to go to her sister because her sister needs her, and Yang needs RWBY as well. But the opportunity was there, so I'm pretty sure we're going to have people saying that Yang is going to Raven instead until we get Volume 5. But it's my opinion that she's going to see RWBY. When we see Blake during RWBY's monologue, she isn't really doing much. She's just looking in a box of memorabilia of old White Fang stuff. And she sees the new flag of the White Fang, and then the old flag of the White Fang, and we know that it's that old flag that she's going to be fighting for, the peaceful White Fang, the true White Fang that's supposed to be helping Faunus and humanity. We also get to see Oscar on the train heading towards Mistral, and he's looking at a poster that's, displaying Haven Academy. So I believe that he's going to at least enroll in the academy within the next volume. We see Ilya, the White Fang ninja assassin girl, meet back up with those two White Fang fox dudes on the same roof that she fought Blake and Sun on for some reason. I mean, I don't truly understand that scene or understand why it's really there. Because these three characters, we barely saw any of them during this volume, and it wants us to think that they're going to be big in the next volume, which I don't think they really are. If they are, it's going to feel real artificial, but maybe they'll surprise me in the next volume. And the last big part of RWBY's speech, where we transition to someone else's perspective, is the villain's perspective. We get to see Cinder seems to be growing more confident in her power because she's taken out some Grimm and she commands Emerald to make an illusion of a defeated RWBY begging for mercy. Now the big question is, how does Emerald know that RWBY's in that new outfit? We could say maybe she talked to Tyrion. But let's just be honest, it was for animation's sake. They wanted to cut corners, and they couldn't do an entirely other model of RWBY in her old outfit in this new rendering format. They just couldn't. So they just went with the RWBY that they actually had. What's truly important in this scene is that through this illusion, Cinder just full-blown blows RWBY away, disintegrates her, burns her to death. And to be honest, I'm just like, okay, you were able to burn away a defenseless illusion. You feel good about yourself, Cinder? I mean, she probably does, but you're not really accomplishing anything with burning away this person, with burning away this illusion. I know you're like trying to get over your fear of RWBY, but it's like when she's defeated like that, she's not a threat. You need to actually train to get better to destroy RWBY. Come on, Cinder, you're better than that. So for the most part, this series ends on a happy note. If it were not for the twist at the end, we finally get to see what Dr. Watts has been doing this whole time. Dr. Watts from the first episode. Remember him? Just barely. I don't blame you. But it appears that Dr. Watts' informant that he was meant to get in communication with in Mistral happens to be Professor Lionheart, the headmaster of Haven Academy. So Salem has it in with one of the Huntsman headmasters. One of the big headmasters of the 4 big academies. One of the people that Ozpin trusted the most. So this brings up a lot of questions. Why is he in cahoots with Salem? When did he get in cahoots with Salem? What is actually going on? Well, what we can distinguish is that it's pretty much confirmed with the name that this Professor Lionheart is based off of the Cowardly Lion from the Wizard of Oz story. So we know that while he probably talks a big game, he probably doesn't back it up with actual actions. But there may be something else to consider. We know Lionheart isn't a dumb. We hear that Crow talks about that he isn't dumb and that he is prepared. Maybe Lionheart has seen what happened to Beacon Academy, saw that Ozpin was defeated, and then looked to his city and wondered, what if this happens to me? I think that what Lionheart is doing is that what he's doing, he's allowing Salem to come in here and do whatever she wants to do at the expense of saving his school and the kingdom that it's attached to. Lionheart is thinking about the people and the students that are under his wing. Seeing that one of his biggest allies has been taken down really frightens him. And when Salem sends a emissary, offering an olive branch, do you think he's just gonna swipe it away? No, he's actually going to listen to see if what she is going to be giving him is actually going to be worth it. Of course, how he's going to react now that he sees that Crow is in his midst and Oscar, who has Ozpin's soul inside of him, is also in Mistral now too. We don't know what Lionheart is going to do. I hope that he'll actually pull through and fight on the side of good. But until then, I see the reason why he's doing what he's doing, or at least a reason that makes sense why he's doing what he's doing. And with that, the credits roll, but as we know, the credits do not end the volume. There is always a scene after the credits that close the volume. And that scene is, we see Crow is sitting at a bar, his natural habitat. And Oscar steps in. And Oscar tells Crow that he wants his cane back. And it's here that we see that Crow knows exactly what's going on. Crow knows what Ozpin is, what he can do, and what he was up to. And without a moment's hesitation, he hands Ozpin's cane to Oscar, saying, "Welcome back, Oz." And it's here that Ozpin's cane actually extends as Oscar holds it. And we see just how large it is in his hands. It is such a large thing. Oscar has a huge responsibility. And we're just going to have to see what's going to happen to actually see what that responsibility is. And with that, Volume 4 ends. A bit disappointingly. Now remember, this is entirely my opinion. If you think Volume 4 is good, and if you think the finale was good, that's entirely up to you. But to me, it just seemed like it was less of a finale and more of a setup for Volume 5. And I know finales are supposed to set you up for what's going to come next, but it seemed to be less of a finale and more of just an episode. This episode itself would have been fine if it was in the middle of a volume, if it was an actual episode. But as a finale, it doesn't seem like that much was actually accomplished. Sure, Ranger finally made it to Mistral, but it just seemed so convenient. It seemed like it was lacking something. It seemed that the only reason Ranger made it to Mistral was because this was the last episode. This was the finale, and they just had to get to Mistral because it was the last episode. That's why it seems to just fall short with me. So, I hope that you enjoyed this review, although it wasn't the best episode and I didn't really sing its praises. I tried to pinpoint its good points, and I hope to do that in future videos that I'm going to be doing. With Volume 4 now over, I'm hoping to do some more videos actually addressing the volume as itself. I want to make a volume-wide review video, as well as try to break down the end credits song. And I also want to at least try to make a Volume 5 prediction video. So hopefully those will be coming out soon. But until next time, Volume 4 has concluded. And well, let's wait for Volume 5.